So what we're going to do is we're here to expose it, let people tell their story, and let everybody in the public see the horrors of the court system in Suffolk County, New York.
Long Island Backstory. Long Island's news alternative to the Newsday Cablevision news monopoly. With Chief Correspondent Gary Jacobs.
Hi, I'm Gary Jacobs, and welcome to Long Island Backstory, where we film at the Cablevision Studios in Hop Hog, New York. Today my guest is Gary Treistman. I call this the mysterious case of Gary Treistman because what I've seen through my research is that this is a case where the courts erred at the beginning of a custody battle that he had over his daughter, and rather than correct their mistake, they dug their heels in and made it worse. And it's just an insane case. This is a case of a father who just wants to be a dad to his daughter and get the courts the hell out of his life, but he can't seem to do this. I warn you, it's a very upsetting case because it's about a father who's been separated from his daughter by the court. So just give us some history, Gary. Were you married to your daughter's mother?
Well, we lived together for 8 years. We weren't officially married.
Okay, and you had a daughter?
Yes.
And how old? How old was she at the time of the separation?
She was seven years old.
Okay, and before that, I was reading that you had a good life together. Everything was good. You lived in a beautiful neighborhood.
Yeah. We lived in the middle of the Catskill Mountains, a very beautiful house. I think you might even have a picture of it. It was idyllic. I mean, it was woods all around us. We had a dog. We had a cat. I still have a good job, but I mean, my job was just as good as it is today. I'm a computer repair person. And it was rather idyllic. And
so what happened?
Yeah, good question. Well, slowly but surely, my ex started, I guess, being dissatisfied with me as a person or as a father. I'm not sure what she was dissatisfied. She doesn't seem to articulate it very well. Just expresses that she wasn't happy.
Okay.
So we decided to split up, and we did, and it was seemingly amicable for about a year. And then...
so you say it was amicable. You were living in a home? Did one of you move out?
Well, actually, both moved out
okay.
to another location.
Okay. Together or each separately?
I think she had in mind that she was going to move out with my daughter and that I would be remaining behind. But that was never formalized, so I just went pretty much to the same location that she went with my daughter, and I took up another apartment in the same building.
Okay.
So my daughter was able to see me and my ex and her mother, back and forth.
Did you have a parenting schedule worked out, or was
no.
just she came and go?
Just as
and everything was
yeah,
good?
she could stay at my place overnight. She could stay at her mother's place overnight. So it was fairly amicable.
Okay.
But I guess as time went by, my ex was less and less satisfied with sharing the decision-making aspects of raising our child. And strangely enough, she didn't even want me to bring her on little vacations, maybe like a 3-day vacation. In fact, that's what initiated it. The formality of the whole thing was very strange. I wanted to bring my daughter on a 3-day vacation just for the weekend. And my ex says, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, why not? I mean, she's my daughter. I mean, you do it. You bring her to
right. And at this point, nobody has custody, so you have just as much legal right.
We had default equivalent custody.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, there wasn't any court order
right.
that one person had physical residential custody. There was nothing formalized in
right.
the court system.
Nothing formal. We didn't even go into the courts. So she said, you can't do that. And I said, well, why not? And she said, because our daughter would have no place to run to protect her. And I'm saying, what are you talking about? I'm her father. I'd be her protector. No. And I just saw irrationality in my ex's eyes. I was like, what are you talking about? So, and she said, well, let me think about it. And I'm like, what should I think? All right, think about it. But while she was thinking about it, quote unquote, she actually stealthily went to the family court, filed for a temporary order of custody, full custody, temporary, you know how these things go, right? And a restraining order.
Based on what allegations?
Let me see, what on earth was the allegation? That I let her stay up late at night, that she didn't like corporal punishment, my ex. There really were very minor things. I mean, I couldn't even understand it.
Okay.
Shortly after that, I was served with this, and I was like shocked. And I'm reading this, I'm saying, what on earth is going on here? And I was just puzzled, totally puzzled. But then all of a sudden, my legal juices started flowing because I have a background in paralegal law. I said, okay, well, then I filed a cross petition for custody. And about 2 weeks later, I got the restraining order taken off of me also. And then we proceeded from there. At that point, I guess it was supposed to be like a legitimate, straightforward, and simple custody petition and a trial. But it didn't turn out that way.
Because you say, well, yeah, you were treated unjustly and contrary to the law.
Well, to say the least. Initially, I think it was going down the normal route of custody petition.
Well, which is the normal route as it goes down the road, the mother gets custody and the father
Well, yeah,
visits.
but seemingly, right? I got visits. Initially, it was very shocking because I'd been with my daughter all the time. We were just, I was a father there just for her all the time. And she'd never been separated from me. And then all of a sudden, one day, Daddy's gone. And there was no explanation to her. And there was this great prohibition. You can't see your dad. I can't knock on the door. And no one tells her anything.
But the order of protection was lifted at that point, right?
Well, we're talking about the first 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. And then after that, yes, it was lifted. But had I even tried to do what the original restraining order told me not to do, she would have filed another restraining order. So with her temporary full custody, she told me, you're not to speak to our daughter, don't come near us, don't knock on our door. And then I was like just stunned and paralyzed. So at that point, I went to the court and I said, well, let me have something, let me have some visit. And then the court slowly worked its way up, initially an hour on Saturday mornings, and then eventually I had 8 hours on Sundays. Mm-hmm. And that was
But at that point, there had been no proof or evidence put forth that there was any reason that your time should be limited.
No, none whatsoever. I should have had equal co-custody.
Well, from what I understand, I'm certainly not a lawyer, that pending a custody trial, that they're supposed to have as much time with both parents as possible, because otherwise, when you go to trial, whoever is not seeing the kid is put at a disadvantage. Pretty much, the ground is already laid there, and that's what the law is. Exactly. Right. So that wasn't fair. So right off the bat, we start off with that wasn't fair because it put you at a disadvantage, because then when they speak to your daughter, she doesn't spend the time.
Exactly.
And now at some point you were charged with child abuse, which is pretty severe, and anybody watching is going to say, hey, we don't want a child abuser.
Right.
Tell us about the child abuse.
Well, initially, my daughter had, once this occurred, concurrently with that, my daughter was taken to the Ulster County Mental Health Department by my ex. Didn't tell me anything about any of this. And in short order, she got her a prescription for Geodon, which is an antipsychotic medication only for adults. But she still got a prescription for this for my daughter. Didn't tell me about it at all. So you don't think it was irresponsible for her mother not to tell me what medicine she's taking?
No, I do not.
Let me ask you a quick question. If a person were to bring their child to, say, a daycare center for 8 hours, don't you think it's incumbent upon them to tell the daycare center what medications that child might be on?
But now as I say, you glossed over the fact that you didn't know, but at this time, it's only temporary custody. You're still the father, and even in a custody case, you have the right to know what's going on. And this isn't going to the doctor for a scrape. This is giving psychotic, pretty darn severe.
That's right.
And you should have been told about it.
I should have been, but I think technically her having full temporary custody, she didn't have to.
Well, you know what have to and what's right?
Yeah, of course, of course. And then it did become a neglect issue when she didn't tell me about it, and I had my daughter for 8 hours on Sundays. You know, there could be contraindications, it could be an allergy.
Well, she's
thing.
probably acting differently too, and you don't know why she's acting differently if you don't know what she's getting.
That was the whole thing. I was very slowly, I saw these strange effects in my daughter. She started, her eyes started drifting, and I was saying, Anya, are you okay? And she's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And I'm like, what's happening? I don't even understand. Then she tells me she's having horrible nightmares, she has insomnia, strange ideations, thinking strange, and gaining weight. And so all this time, I'm trying to figure out what's happening. You know, it's mysterious.
And did you ever ask your ex, hey, what's going on with her? Is she on medication? What's changed?
I suspected, and I wasn't going to ask her directly, but at that point we were in the discovery stage where you can ask formally. So yeah, I did put that question in there. Is there any medications being given to our daughter? any diagnostics, anything, just tell me, you know.
Right.
And they're supposed to tell you, legally supposed to tell you what's going on. Came back, nope, nothing's happening.
So she lied.
Lied in formal court documents.
Okay.
All right, so then my daughter then tells me, says, Daddy, I have to tell you something. Mommy's giving me a pill every day, and she told me I'm not supposed to tell you.
Well, that would scare the hell out of anybody.
Yeah.
Because you don't know if your ex-wife is mentally ill at this
That's
point, or
right.
she's developed an illness. Is she trying to make her look? You know, you don't know.
I didn't.
Who wouldn't be?
I
Who must have
had
been
no idea
petrified.
if it was from my ex alone, or from a doctor, or
Right.
nasal medication, or
Because
or
otherwise,
whatever.
why wouldn't she tell you?
Exactly. What's the big mystery?
Something's hiding. You know, she's on. If she needs to be on medication, tell
Right.
you.
What's the mystery, and why didn't she tell me on Discovery?
Right.
Really,
It's really
mystery.
something.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're worried at that
I
point.
was very worried. And so at that point, my daughter also had a kind of a heart palpitation or something, and I was like very nervous, and I tried looking it up on the internet. She didn't know the name of it. She said it was white with black lettering, and I couldn't identify what it was. But my nervousness was quite apparent to my daughter, and she got nervous too because I was nervous. I mean, her heart went down that day, and everything was fine, and we went to a festival. But when she went home to her mother, apparently she said, I'm not taking that pill anymore. I refuse. And there was apparently a big ruckus. They never told me about it either because it was a big secret. But I heard that they forced this medication down her throat while she was screaming, Daddy, Daddy, help me, please. And of course, I was not even nearby to do anything about it. But they literally forced this drug down my daughter's throat until eventually she just, 5 people holding her down, eventually she just yielded to it. All right, so that was probably the beginning of where I started being charged with abuse or neglect or something. To
Yeah,
that
I
effect.
read you were charged with child abuse and emotional neglect.
Right, emotional neglect. They said that because I brought they just kind of made it up as they went along. I think that might have been the central issue, though, or the core of their charge. I'm not sure. They said because I brought my child to McDonald's, because I weighed her on a bathroom scale, because I gave her soda.
And just for the people watching, I saw the video because you took a video
Yes.
at Child Protective Services.
Right.
So people can look and say, oh, this is crazy. This guy didn't get charged with
Right.
bringing his daughter to McDonald's.
Right.
You did. I saw it on video.
Yep.
The woman says you brought her to McDonald's. You talked about her weight.
This shall cease and desist now,
So,
or else.
Right. So it is true. And I don't know if we'll show the clip or not, but you did videotape that.
I did. I wanted to make
Which
sure.
thank God, because otherwise nobody would believe
No
you.
one would believe that. It's as insane as it sounds, but you can see it right coming out of their mouths.
Right.
And 5 days after that video was shot, they did charge me on petition in court. And at that point, restraining orders went down, all my visitation was gone, and so began a whole year or two of seeing my daughter for 1 hour a week.
Right. You say in your blog that you feel you're a victim of a malicious prosecution. What do you mean by that?
Well, that, I don't know what prompted them there. I mean, originally my daughter, this is like concurrent, so it gets a little confusing, but at that time also, prior to me being interviewed in that videotaped interview, my daughter had told me that she got locked out of the apartment, her mother was nowhere to be found, and she was crying on the parking lot, which is next to a highway, and that she was there for half an hour, and her a neighbor came and consoled her and waited for her mother to come back. Now, I had been told that if anything happens in our case that I even suspect to be neglectful, I should call CPS. Generally, I don't like doing that because it's snitchy. I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. But they said, or else. Otherwise, I would be liable for it. So I did. I called CPS and said, my daughter said that she was locked out of the apartment. A neighbor told me that this confirmed it, and so I'm calling it in. That they found was not neglectful.
That wasn't, but taking to McDonald's was neglectful. You see a bias here?
Yeah, quite so. And then shortly after I made that phone call, they found it not neglectful. Then they come down hard on me for a whole bunch of nonsense. Truly, just parenting, normal parenting decisions.
Do you think, Gary, this is just a case of bias against the father, and they don't like that you were fighting back? That you were fighting too hard, you were exposing it, and they said, we're going to give it to this guy. He's fighting back. And we're going to give it to him.
That's what I believe. I think there was
They wanted you to just go away.
some attitude on the first round was, oh, he's going to call on the mother. We'll show him what he's going to do when he calls on people, that we favor.
But you were in front of a judge. Did the judge treat you fairly? I mean, you got in front of a judge several times.
No, because the judge should have dismissed this case upon hearing the charges. The standards of neglect were not even met in the first place. But the judges, they'll let anything. It was almost like the indicting of a ham sandwich. And, oh, it sounds good to me, let's hear it.
Right.
So that was the first round. The second round, I believe, is your question about malicious prosecution.
Right.
All right, so they put you on a tightrope, and they watch you for a year and a half, 1 hour a week. They pat you down, pat you down with a police officer.
Is it an EAC visitation setting?
Right.
For supervised visitation?
Right.
Okay.
And they do this in front of your daughter, right in front of my daughter.
Right. Which sends a message to her that she should be fearful of you, because if the police are there patting you down,
That's right.
Listen, the kid's not stupid. They get that subconscious message
course.
that, hey, you know what? Everybody thinks daddy's got something wrong.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, this supervised visit, unless you really need it, is not a good thing, because it sends a message that there's a reason.
That's right.
Even though they say,
There's
well,
something
it's
wrong with my
pending a
daddy.
case, but there's something wrong. And
Everybody's treating my daddy like a criminal, that he's dangerous.
Right.
He must be. I don't
Right,
know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So while this was happening, I got more and more frustrated. They reneged on one of the agreements. They said they were going to stop it early. So I got more and more frustrated. And I told my daughter, I said, I would really like to try to get this done. And she said, well, what can we do, Daddy? I want to be with you too. I said, well, maybe I'll file a lawsuit against them. And she said, well, and she knew what that was. And she said, well, that's great. Can I be a part of it? Can I do it? And I said, yeah, great idea. So we filed a lawsuit against CPS. And they were shocked, I guess, or stunned, I don't know. But they told me that I could not talk to my own daughter, who was a co-plaintiff and a witness in the case, about the federal lawsuit that I had filed against them.
Right.
They said if I continued to talk to my daughter about just the simple facts that we should be together, simple stuff, it wasn't any sophisticated thing. My daughter could play chess, she wasn't stupid. That they would charge me with neglect.
And this is really a problem, because you know what, who is the government to tell you how to parent and what you can say? Listen, like you said, you're not talking about something heavy. You're not saying I want to kill mommy, I want to take you away from
Right,
mommy.
it's very
You're saying I
dry.
want to spend more time with you, and I'm being abused by the system, and daddy didn't do this. This is a normal thing
Right.
that you would want to tell to your daughter, and it just bothers me when the government comes in and says you can't say these things. Normal, and this is your person. Who were they to say
I know.
that it's the wrong
They're
thing
trying
to
to
do?
tell me it's inappropriate, and your daughter, this is adult matters, your daughter should know nothing about these things. I
But
said,
that
"Should-
causes a problem if you don't tell your daughter why you're not seeing her.
I know.
And why
the
are you fighting for her?
circumstances- Yeah.
I think your daughter was smart. I think if you're only seeing her for an hour a week,
Have to
before
explain it to her.
right? What do hey, Daddy, aren't you doing something?
Right.
Why aren't you fighting for me? I think that would be more detrimental.
She was happy when she heard it. She felt like we were doing something. She was a
Right,
part
you're
of
fighting.
something.
But let me ask you, this went on for a long time. Why didn't you have a custody case? You were in court. Why not get this over with? Because what happens is, this is sort of a self-directed, it becomes you use the term self-fulfilling prophecy. I say it's like a self-directed verdict or judicially imposed estrangement by keeping you for so long. Why not get to the damn trial and get to the truth?
That's a very good question. Well, while all this CPS stuff went on, we had to kind of cease the custody proceedings, because it's kind of silly to have a custody trial while I'm being charged
How long
with
does it
neglect.
take to find out if you did it? You freaking watched all the time.
It took a year and a half. That's how long it took to find out that I was completely exonerated of any charge that they had
But the
on me.
damage is done.
Oh yeah, in fact, legally they say, well, you're a clean man, you're free now. I'm like, really? Well, what about the whole
Well, then
year?
tomorrow, let me go take my daughter and make up for that time.
That's right.
That's not going to happen.
Nope.
So that gets done. Now you go to court, and
Okay,
there's
so I get exonerated.
Okay.
After a year and a half of litigation and all that nonsense that I had to go, my daughter being exposed, me being pat down, searched by armed guard.
it was all unnecessary. You were
Somebody
exonerated.
watching us with a clipboard, listening to everything we say. It was very obvious. There was no parenting going on there.
Right.
It was worse than a visitor. It was like someone who was dangerous to her. And they made no bones about telling her that.
Right.
We're here to protect you from your daddy. When I wasn't even guilty of anything. So, yeah.
So the judge must have, when you found not guilty, did the judge apologize and say,
that's the
Mr.
funny
Treistman,
thing.
let me make this right. You just lost all this time with your daughter. You've been found
You
not
would think.
guilty. Let me make this right.
You would think. Okay, get this. During the times that I was in litigation and ostensibly charged with maltreatment or neglect, I was seeing my daughter for 1 hour a week, all right, which was nothing as far as I'm concerned because I had her all the time. And I thought it was insulting and a terrible thing to show to my daughter. However, at some point, my complete exoneration came down, and I told my daughter, I said, oh my goodness, Anya, everything is good now. We're going to be able to see each other, and this is wonderful. And we won't have to deal with this concrete room again with people staring us down. Or so I thought. Shortly after being exonerated, I went from 1 hour a week visitation with her to nothing.
How'd that happen?
Well, because during the time that I'm being charged and CPS is ostensibly in control of the case, they, however awful they are, have this bare minimum of letting you see the kid something, an hour a week, right? However, that bare minimum did not apply to my ex.
What do you mean?
The second the charges went away, CPS went away, and my ex, who had effective custody at that time, now became the authority and said, you're not seeing the kid at all.
And did she have the right to do that?
Until there was a visitation order, yes. There was that she had the right to do that. Until there was a visitation order.
To keep you from your daughter.
Well, yeah, because...
But I would think that, you know what, in a backwards way, that when you go to court now, you could say, look, this is clear alienation.
Yes.
So therefore she shouldn't have custody
Yes.
because she's keeping me from my daughter.
Exactly. For all intents and purposes, I should have been getting visitation on that first day of trial.
Right.
Okay, so we asked.
And again, I believe the law says that you should have, during a trial for custody, number one, I think there's a 90 days, the trial is supposed to be done within 90 days, but during that time, you're supposed to have the liberal time with the child to not put you at a disadvantage.
That's right.
And that didn't occur.
A custody trial is supposed to go no longer than 90 days.
Right.
Mine went for 2.5 years, but we'll get to that in a second. Yes. So we asked for visitation on this, and the judge says, well, you know, I'm not comfortable with giving out visitation at this time. I want to hear more about the case. And we're like real puzzled. We're looking at each other. We're trying to figure out, what's this all about? All right, so we gave him the benefit of the doubt. However, the puzzlement was more accurate than the benefit of the doubt because we subsequently asked 16 times for visitation, and he would always answer with the same answer. Well, I'm not comfortable. I would like to hear more about the case. Even at pivotal times when her case had been totally presented against me and my case was going to begin. You're not going to hear anything worse than what you had heard from what she was going to present. But he said, no, I want to hear. And get this, the custody case has ended on February 1st of this year, 2016. And did I get any visitation? No.
But Karen, I mean, let's be honest. Based on what I read, you're not going to get any because, for whatever reason, they're keeping you from your daughter. And you did not get a fair trial because, number one, it lasted 30 months. And if a judge was serious about a father having time with his daughter, number one, he would have made the trial go faster. Number two, based on the fact that you were exonerated from everything, you would have had time with your trial. He's sort of self-setting this whole thing up. So, I mean, you're pushing to get the answer. But in my opinion, the answer is going to be bad. The judge already made his mind up when he kept you from your daughter.
And he imposed the conditions. I mean, if I can't see my daughter for 30 months while this trial is going on, after all that time goes by and a custody determination is supposed to go down, what are the criteria for custody determination? The relationship with the child, how long has the child been in the place that she's been in, who does the child go to for support and
It couldn't go to you.
Right.
Well, that's what we said. It's a self-directed verdict. It's judicially imposed estrangement. The judge sort of self-directed the way this was going to go. And I read in your papers, and one thing that really disturbed me is there was a law guardian appointed for the child. And then, say what you want about it, used to be that they looked out for the best interest of the child, but the law changed, and I understand they shouldn't look out for the best interest because who were they? They're an attorney. They don't know what the best interest. So they changed the law a few years ago to say that the law guardian's job is to carry out the wishes of the child. And I read a really disturbing motion that your law guardian put forth to the judge, where she says at the beginning, I'm advocating for my client, your daughter's wishes. And then she goes on with an attorney with all the reasons that she feels. I think she even says it. Well, I feel he shouldn't have any time
Right.
with the kid. That's nowhere does it say your daughter says she wants to be with you. It's not even discussed what her wishes are.
black
And honestly,
comedy.
that should have been shut right out. That law guardian should be disbarred.
You would think, right?
And the judge should have shut her up.
Well, that's a summation. They can say almost anything they want on summation.
But they have a directive to do.
yes, they
what,
can't lie. They can't lie.
Well, they
She's
can't.
saying
But,
that
but
my-
she's testifying, which I don't think she should have been doing.
Well, she's testifying also on the summation.
Right.
But the worst thing is she says she's representing my daughter's wishes. I don't want to see my daddy ever again.
Right.
I don't want to have any visitation with him. What on earth? Where did that come from? We had the closest relationship before this all came down.
And I don't know if she said it or not, but like you said, there's parental alienation where they
Yeah.
could be turned. And what brainwashing occurred in the 30 years, the 30 months that happened? Number one, by your ex, and number two, you don't have to hear it.
Right.
The kids are smart, they're perceptive.
Exactly.
You're being kept from them. In the back of her mind, she's going to be
Something
scared.
must- yeah.
There's a reason that they're keeping me
That's right.
from my
Well,
dad.
I believe alienation was done by my ex. I believe alienation was done by her lawyer, the attorney for the child. I believe alienation was done by her whole family, and with nothing there to correct it, with a restraining order on me saying I can't talk to my child.
Right.
So it's a setup. It's a complete setup.
Just if you could take a step back, Gary, what do you think? What went wrong here? Why did this all happen to you? I mean, you're a nice guy. You have a job. You were. I won't say you're the primary caregiver, but
I
you say you were
was.
both. You were in the house all the time.
All the time.
with your daughter.
Yes,
you're,
I was.
If you look, you have a job. Your ex-wife, I believe, is on social services.
Now she is.
She doesn't live in the same kind of place that
Right.
you have to offer. So what went wrong here?
I think initially the judge made a wrong call. Maybe he doesn't like uppity pro se litigants. I tend to think because I sued the county,
This is retribution.
this is retribution and retaliation for my lawsuit against Ulster County and the CPS workers.
So did anybody recuse themselves from the case? Because they're all mentioned in your lawsuit.
No. In fact, we tried to get the attorney for the child disqualified. We asked the judge.
Just
several
reading
times.
that damn paper she wrote should have been enough reason,
You
as
would
far as I'm
think.
concerned.
You would think. And the judge says, no, I'm not going to recuse. I'm not going to disqualify an attorney just every time they get sued by somebody.
But your case wasn't thrown out.
No,
Your lawsuit is still pending?
my lawsuit is quite pending. Yes.
Okay.
It's already passed the discovery stage, and we're closing in on trial.
All right, well, hopefully you'll get some justice there. We only have about 2 minutes left,
Mm-hmm.
so look over in the camera and you can talk to your daughter, Gary, because
No, I
hopefully
can't.
she'll see. Oh, you're not allowed to talk to your daughter.
allowed
Okay.
to.
So if you could talk to the judge, what would you tell the judge?
I would say, Your Honor, why on earth would you want to separate a loving father from his daughter? Why would you want to create the conditions by which alienation can occur? I mean, you were quite aware of the allegations of alienation by her mother. In fact, we had psychologists testify in the custody trial that said that she was alienating. What more did you want? Why is it that you told us that you just wanted to hear more about the case before you issued a visitation, when obviously throughout all that time you never intended to provide any visitation? Those would be the questions. I mean, I don't know the answers, but it is just a crime. That is the crime. Why separate a loving father from his daughter and vice versa with no cause, no reason, other than maybe he didn't like my face? I'm not sure what it is.
Well, Gary, this is a very sad case. There's so many kids who are missing a loving father, and here you are. You want to
Trying
be
so hard.
and fighting to be in your daughter's life. And
Years.
hopefully you'll get some. I think at this point you're okay with your ex having custody. If that's
I'm not okay. I'm still petitioning for custody.
But I thought you're going to lose that, right? There's not a fair. I read the papers. You didn't get a fair shake. So how are you going to win?
I don't expect to win.
Okay.
But I should
Or
win.
you should have time. But in the
If
meantime,
you saw the custody case, you would say I
well,
should win.
I read your papers, and the evidence would be that you really should, but at least you should have time.
At least.
This is just a horrible miscarriage of justice. So, Gary, thank you very much
Thank
for
you, Gary.
coming out, and I wish you luck, and you'll keep us posted.
Most
and
definitely.
we'll do an update.
Well, I thank you so much for having me.
I'm Gary Jacobs, and thank you for joining us at Long Island Backstory.